Nama Om. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswamin Iti Namine Nama Om Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namine Nama Vishnupadaya Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namine Nama Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Nami Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Nama Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Bhaktivedanta Swami Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namah Om Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschat Desha Tarine Namaste Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschat Desha Tarine Namaste Nirvishesha Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschat Desha Tarine Namaste Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare. Jaya Radha, Kalachanji Radha, Kalachanji Radhe, Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Kalachanji Radha, Kalachanji Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Nila Madhava Radha, Nila Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Giridhari Radha, Giridhari Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Giridhari Radha, Giridhari Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Madan Mohan Radha, Madan Mohan Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Madan Mohan Radha, Madan Mohan Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Gopinath Radha, Gopinath Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Gopinath Radha, Gopinath Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Rasa Bihari Radha, Rasa Bihari Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Rasa Bihari Radha, Rasa Bihari Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Madhava Radha, Madhava Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Shama Sundar Radha, Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Shama Sundar Radha, Shama Sundar Shri Radhe Jaya Radha. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Vrindavan Dham, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Jagannath. Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami, Nayana Patagami, Bhavatu me Jagannath. Jagannath Swami Nayana Patagami, Nayana Patagami, bhavatu me. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath Swami, Jaya Jagannath. Jaya Baladev, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Baladev Swami, Jaya Baladev. Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya Subhadra, Jaya, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya. Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya. Jaya Nrsimhadev, 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 Jaya Nrsimhadeva, Jaya. Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Ananta Shesh, Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Ananta Shesha, Jaya. Jaya Vigna Vinash, Jaya Nrsimhadev, Vigna Vinash, Jaya Nrsimhadeva, Jaya. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva, Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva, Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva, Nitai Gauranga, Haribol, Haribol. Haribol, Nitai Gora, Haribol, Nitai Gora, Haribol, Haribol, Nitai Gora, Haribol, Nitai Gauranga, Haribol, 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 Nitai Gora, Haribol, Nitai Gora, Haribol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya. Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya. Jaya Patita Pavan Srila Gurudeva, Patita Pavan Srila Gurudeva, Jaya Patita Pavan. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramansa Parivrajikacharya Stotar Sato Shishimad. His Divine Grace, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajikacharya Astotar Sato Shishimad. His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaya Charanar Vindam Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja Mahatsava Ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudev's Avirbhav Mahatithi Ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories, Shri Shri Guru and Gaurango. Glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Jai. All right, Hare Krishna. Jai, Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. So welcome everybody to today's Vyasa Puja celebration. We've put this here just so that the camera, as it is now situated, whoever's speaking can speak from this chair or stand up and speak, however you like to do it. If you're standing up, stand up on this side. This chair is like the edge of the screenshot that's being taken. And so that this is being live streamed right now, so that people can actually see Srila Prabhupada as well and see the setup here of the bus, the rather Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party bus. And there's also the way that's being recorded right now, because this recording is for posterity as well. The deities are being seen all the time as well. If you go on YouTube, you'll see that it's the top line is the deities being seen, at the bottom is this scene here. And so when you're standing and sitting here, just realize that that's what's happening. And we're taking this for posterity because this year we've taken a lot of effort to speak about the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party, because in the history of this movement, this is an amazing arrangement that was created by Srila Prabhupada, and of course with the assistance of some very, very amazing devotees like Srila Gurudev. And so we wanted to record it this year for posterity. And so there's lots of recordings that have been going on online. You can join us. There'll be one again this Sunday at 8:30 in the morning. You can see that either on our own YouTube program, or you can join the Zoom program. The Zoom link is going to be on that screen that you see on the left side, where it shows right now Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja celebration. That other one will also show up on the screen. There it is right now, actually, you can see it now. It's come up on the screen. So the link is there if you want to join on Zoom, and if you'd like to ask any questions of these wonderful devotees who will be speaking about the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. And so that's the reason this year we thought the theme should be the bus. And so we created the bus. All thanks to Hansaduta Prabhu. Such an amazing devotee. He's able to organize things. So he did such a great job. And as you remember that famous photograph of the bus party, and Srila Prabhupada was there, and the devotees, so that's why this thing is in the front. So it's Radha Damodar, who on the bus, and Gurudev and Prabhupada, and of course we would have had a photo of a lot of other devotees here as well, but right now we just set up for two of them on the Vyasas. And then the books are there because that's what the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party was all about. How we can maximize the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books so that everybody can come to the point of Krishna consciousness. Anyway, thank you all so very much for attending today's program. This year is the 76th anniversary of Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja, of his Holy Appearance Day. And it is said in our Siddhanta, in Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta, that when we're celebrating the Vyasa Puja of any spiritual master, we are actually celebrating the Vyasa Puja of all spiritual masters. So please be very happy to be here. And this is one of the reasons we're recording this, just so that people will come to see this. And in future, hundreds of years from now, maybe 500,000 years from now, when they look back at this recording, they will see that this was the beginnings of the Hare Krishna movement. Of course, this year is, what, the 56th year? 56th year, I think, of the movement. 50th year was 2016, so 55th year. 56th year, yeah. This is the 56th year. So religious movements are studied in 50-year cycles because they're meant to last for thousands of years. So the first birthday is in 50 years, that's the first cycle. So we just ended our second cycle right now. It's like the second birthday of the Hare Krishna movement, you might say. So we're very young right now, we're still a very young movement. When this movement becomes 100 years old, 200 years old, we can't even imagine what will be happening. It'll be so many amazing things will be happening. But at that time, they'd like to look back and see, just like, imagine for Christians today, right? If they could see a video of the time when Jesus was on the planet, when Lord Jesus was on the planet, and his disciples were preaching 5, 10, 15, 50, 60, 100 years from after he left, you can imagine how amazing that would be, right? I mean, that would be totally amazing. That would prove that actually Lord Jesus was on the planet. Today, some people ask questions, but did he really come? Was there Lord Jesus? I mean, you don't have a photograph, you don't have anything. And with Srila Prabhupada, we have footage of him, actually walking on the planet, actually speaking, eating, everything about him, detail to detail. So it's hard for somebody in the future to say, well, we don't know if he really walked on the planet. It might be a big conspiracy. It's not, because here's the footage. Of course, these days we have these virtual reality things where you can show a person almost like a real person giving a talk when it's actually only a virtual reality program. But you can tell which one is virtual reality and which is a recording. And you can imagine that today's video recording 100 years from now will look a little wonky, Just like today, if you look at what they call the talkies of the 60s, you see the talkies of the 60s, right? Where animated people, they're moving around a little jerky, and there's no voice, right, in the beginning. So you can tell that this was the talkies from the 60s, like that. So this is going to be very amazing that in the future, when Krishna consciousness will be so widely practiced by everybody, they'd love to look back at the origins of the movement and say, how did the movement start? Who were the devotees at the time of that movement? What did they do? So, understanding that today, as you speak today, if there's anything that you can say, thinking a little about, in the future, when people hear this, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 200, 500,000, 5,000 years from now, what would you like them, what was the message you'd like to give them a little in terms of the current situation, not preaching to them, but actually just saying things in a way that they would find very interesting to know that happened at that time. These are real things that happened at that time. So, Srila Gurudev, as we all know, is a disciple of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, and one of the prominent disciples. All the disciples of Srila Prabhupada are very important. Every last one of them is very important. Prabhupada made that very clear. Srila Gurudev made that very clear. And it is very clear that all the disciples are amazing, amazing devotees who helped Srila Prabhupada set up this movement around the world. Just did amazing things to set up the movement. And then the next generation came along to help them to continue spreading the movement. And today it is true that the Hare Krishna movement is much larger than it was when it started. It's much bigger. Today we have many more than 1,000 temples now. We have many more than 10,000 centers around the world. I mean, that's amazing. We have millions of devotees, and many millions who are actually devotees but would rather stay a little in the background right now for one reason or another. But they'll also come out, they'll also join in and actually become part of that big Sankirtan party that Bhaktivinoda Thakur predicted, that everybody will join hands and dance and sing Jai Sachinandana Gaura Hari. So we can see that coming about slowly and all over the world, and especially in America. There's some very, very amazing programs that are happening. So we're supposed to start the offerings at 10:30, and that's why you heard me give this long spiel. And so now I'd like to call upon you wonderful devotees to come and speak, and I'll start with Chakri Prabhu. Prabhu, would you like to come along and say something? I'm sorry? Oh, she wants to be here at that time? Okay, so we'll wait for him. So, yeah, Vishwambar Prabhu, can you please come? Oh, I forgot.
Sound is okay. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shri Mate Tamal Krishna Goswami Nitinam. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamne. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschatya Desh Tarine. So, it is the most auspicious day for all of us, the devotees in ISKCON. Today, and specifically for the Dallas temple devotees, the congregation devotees, the new devotees, the senior devotees, everybody. Why? Because the appearance day of a great pure devotee is an occasion that you can participate in celebration and you can get unlimited blessings from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So that way I consider myself very fortunate to be able to participate here in the favorite temple of Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Dallas temple was definitely his favorite temple. He worked very hard to put this temple on the map before he took charge of the Dallas temple. It was not doing very well. But with his special skills and training that he had received from Srila Prabhupada, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, he met Srila Prabhupada in the very early days of ISKCON movement. Just like Nityanand Prabhu just mentioned, that now we are in the early childhood phase of ISKCON society. So, if you compare the ISKCON society with other societies like Muslim society or Christian society, Christianity has 2000 years of history. But in the early 50 days of Christianity, they had no history, they had no society, there was nothing. Even the Bible was written after 100 or 200 years after Christianity started. So for the first 500, 600 years, this is what the world historians, they are saying, that 500, 600 years, Christianity was nowhere in the world. So, similarly, Muslim society, for the first 100, 200 years, there was even no book, there was no Quran, there was nothing. Nobody knew about it. It was just a small nomadic Arab community, and something was happening locally. So, you can see, from the historical point of view, if you compare, which is already being done by the great historians, and they are saying that what the ISKCON society, Hare Krishna movement, has achieved in the 50 years, it was not even achieved for 600 or 700 years by either the Muslims or by the Christians, which are the greatest groups right now. If you look at the world population. But the speed with which the ISKCON society and the Hare Krishna movement is spreading all over the world. So you can only take a calculated guess what will be the situation. How big will be the ISKCON movement 500 years after? So that's 450 more years to go approximately. So looking at that, we can say very confidently that we have a very bright future as far as the society is concerned. And because we are participating in the early stages of ISKCON society, so definitely for us also there is a very bright future. So, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj is very special category devotee. Why? Because very few devotees who joined in that phase of very early stages of the movement, when Prabhupada did not have practically anybody with him. He was one of the first ones who joined with him. And he stayed all along. Not only he stayed all along, but he helped Prabhupada to establish some fundamental principles to build the foundation of the ISKCON society. That is a very rare contribution from one individual. If you consider Srila Prabhupada as the general of the Sankirtan army of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then definitely you can say Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. He is the lieutenant general. He is the right-hand man. From the very day he joined, he seriously participated and helped Prabhupada in every way he could. He became the personal servant of Srila Prabhupada. He was also the secretary of Srila Prabhupada. And he was the advisor also of Srila Prabhupada. So his role, you can imagine how much faith Srila Prabhupada had on Srila Gurudev Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. And first of all, as you see here, the Radha Damodar Sankirtan bus party, he established successfully all over the America. That was a great achievement, and Prabhupada was so impressed with this achievement that he personally came to bless this party. So many newcomers became very wonderful devotees by joining this Radha Damodar book distribution Sankirtan party. So, if that was the only achievement that he had, then that was even great enough. But after that, one after another, in different projects all over the world, in Bombay project, he helped Prabhupada to establish the Bombay project, Bombay Juhu project, Radha Ras Bihari. Then he helped to secure the land of Mayapur Dham and build the beautiful temple that we are going to see. The inauguration is coming up. So he was very actively involved with Mayapur project up to the end of his life here on the earth planet. And he helped with Vrindavan project. So the three most important projects in India he helped with. Then he helped establish Krishna consciousness in Fiji. In America, of course, he was always involved, but the two most beautiful temples that we see, the Dallas Temple and the Houston Temple, as a model project that how you can make a temple project successful. He put the foundational principles here and in Houston. And we can see the progress that we are able to achieve here in Dallas and in Houston. So these are just some of the few examples of Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Gurudev's wonderful achievements during his lifetime. Many devotees think that when we get old, we should enjoy retirement. Many devotees I see, they're looking forward to retire. That how now I have worked so hard all my life. How can I retire? But I saw Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. He was not keeping very good health that time. But he looked at me and he was smiling. His kind and compassionate smile and his merciful glance, I can never forget. From the very beginning, I didn't have a lot of time to spend with him because he was a very great leader and I was just a small devotee. But every time he showered so much mercy on me personally. So I'm eternally grateful and thankful to him. Because in the beginning, I used to hear his lectures, his classes very attentively. And I used to personally go and attend his kirtan programs. His kirtan was a very special treat, very sweet and melodious. As he was an expert in the different scriptures, in explaining the scriptures, also he was an expert musician and a singer. He had a very sweet voice. So I was fortunate to get all the mercy. So personally, I'm very thankful to Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Now, the other great achievements that I should not forget mentioning is his successful establishing Krishna consciousness in China. In those days, nobody could imagine going into China and introducing Krishna consciousness. And when, just like in Russia, in the early days, it was a very repressive government, and devotees had they had to face a lot of troubles. So similarly, now it's a little bit easy in Russia. So when the repressive government in China is gone, you can imagine how Krishna consciousness will explode in China. Because right now in Russia, there are hundreds and thousands of devotees, more and more people. They want to become Krishna devotees. So same thing is going to happen in China. But the credit of that will go to Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Gurudev, because he took the order of Srila Prabhupada seriously. Prabhupada had given him other choice also, that if you don't want to go to China, then you can sit down here in Mayapur and chant Hare Krishna. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he took the risky path. He always chose the bold and risky path to achieve more and more success for Krishna conscious movement. So that one thing also has impressed me and inspired me. Besides that, his personal skills of book writing, nobody can forget. If you study Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj's books, you can understand how high quality scholar he was. And at the same time, he was able to also bring in intellectuals. That was one of his major desires, to bring the intellectual community and academic community into Krishna consciousness. So he worked hard for that also. So it is very rare to find one personality who is so perfect and multi-talented. And yet when you see him personally, he looks so humble and smiling and kind and compassionate. So again, today I am offering my obeisances at his lotus feet. And also I am offering my obeisances at his followers. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vishwambar Prabhu. Vishwambar Prabhu ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now we have Chakri Prabhu come up.
Tamal Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami iti nomine. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti nomine. So I was really inspired today when I saw the bus. I thought that was really amazing, that bus that was put together by Hansadutta Prabhu. Because I was on that bus party, I had the good fortune of being on that bus party. So this brings back a lot of memories. I was listening to a lecture yesterday by Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada asked a question in the lecture. He said, what does it mean to serve Krishna? And then he gave the answer. He said, service to Krishna means spreading Krishna consciousness to everyone. That is service to Krishna, spreading Krishna consciousness. So that was Srila Gurudev's life. He dedicated himself to spreading Krishna consciousness and helping Srila Prabhupada in his mission. So in so many ways, he started the distribution of Back to Godheads, and then he came up with the idea of this traveling bus party. So he purchased so many buses. They were renovated inside to be like a temple room. There was a pretty good sized temple room, then an altar, and then behind the altar was the kitchen. So everything was self-contained on that bus that we had. It was like a rolling temple. So this was all Srila Gurudev's arrangement with Vishnu Jan Swami. And we had vans, like we weren't always with the bus. There was maybe 4 or 5 vans that were attached to each bus. And periodically we would meet at the bus, but we weren't always at the bus. So it was a little bit austere. One van, it was just a cargo van, like a Dodge van or a Ford van. There would be 4 of us living in that van, if you can imagine. You know, 4 20-year-olds living in one van. Even one time there were 5 of us. And we just slept in that van, we ate in that van, and that was our life, distributing the books during the day. And it was austere, but I feel fortunate, like that's probably my greatest asset in my spiritual bank account, being able to be a part of that activity. We would just get up in the morning, have a short morning program, have breakfast, and then we would just be dropped off on a parking lot by ourselves all day long. Sometimes you'd get picked up by maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night, and it was just you and your books and your mind, you know, just distributing books all day long. And then occasionally we would get to go with the bus, and anyway, you know, we were young. I think I was about 25 years old, so most of us in our 20s and younger. So it was great. It was adventurous, and we got to perform a lot of austerities and distribute so many books that way. Srila Gurudev came up with the plan. We weren't actually directly giving the books, but we would give some paraphernalia, get a donation, and then give the book. So that way we could distribute so many books, because people at that time, they didn't know what Hare Krishna was. And there were a lot of cults around then. So this is the way we did it. And that was Srila Gurudev's genius, that he figured out a way that so many books could be distributed. And they asked Prabhupada about that. Is it okay that we're doing like this? At first he said, well, better to distribute the books directly, But then Srila Gurudev said, well, then our distribution will be cut in half. And then Prabhupada said, oh, okay, if this is working, then just keep doing it. So when I joined the party, it was toward the end, I think 1976. So I think Srila Gurudev was maybe in China by then or planning to go to China. But I just saw him once. He came to our party one time and gave a lecture. And it was very, very inspiring. So that was Srila Gurudev's contribution by having this beautiful party. So there were two things, when I think of Srila Gurudev, two things come to mind, and that is, one is preaching, and then the other one is sadhana. He always stressed having good sadhana, and he always stressed getting up early in the morning, coming to the temple, coming to Mangal Arti, chanting your rounds in the temple, reading Prabhupada's books. And he was a living example of that himself. He did all those things. He did everything himself. He said to worship the deities on the altar, read Krishna book, then you can go on the altar, you can be with the deities, and you can remember those past times. So that was another feature of Srila Gurudev that I'll always remember, his strict adherence to sadhana. And he said, our whole life is sadhana. Everything you do is sadhana. So that's something that I always try to remember. And this temple also was set up as a preaching project. He wanted people to come here. That's why he established the restaurant, so people could come, take prasadam, and then he built this beautiful temple room with so many beautiful architecture and all these paintings, so people could come and be attracted. I'm sure we've all had the experience of people coming to the temple for the first time, and they walk in and they're just astounded by how beautiful it is. And in the past, we used to have tours. There were tours, devotees were giving tours to the restaurant customers because they're actually inquisitive. What is this? How was this built? And why is this built? And what's it all about? So he had instituted tours of the temple room. So in that way, people would become more and more interested in Krishna consciousness. And we used to have a table in here with some pamphlets and books that people could take to introduce them to Krishna consciousness. So it would be nice if we could do those things again, because people are coming and they are inquisitive about what we're doing. And that was why Gurudev made this temple the way it is and the restaurant, so we could make more devotees that way. So I guess that's basically it. So we always say we can associate with the Guru two ways, by Vani and Vapu, or by instruction and by personal association. So now that we can have Gurudev's personal association, we can follow his instructions of having good sadhana, strong sadhana, reading Prabhupada's books, and spreading Krishna consciousness. I once heard him say that if you don't spread Krishna consciousness or help spread Krishna consciousness, then you won't get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So I pray that I can follow in his footsteps, and I thank him for starting this Radha Damodar party and allowing me to be a part of it. I was in New York at the time, and there was going to be Rath Yatra. That was the year that Prabhupada was coming to New York for Rath Yatra. But they asked me to join the Radha Damodar party, and I said, well, I want to be here for Rath Yatra. They said, oh, you can come back, it's fine. But once I was on the party, I never came back. But anyway, I thank Srila Gurudev for starting that Radha Damodar party and allowing me to be a part of it. And I pray that I can follow his instructions and continue with my sadhana and somehow help him and Srila Prabhupada in their mission to distribute Krishna consciousness to everyone. We can see the way things are in the world right now, and everything is in a big chaos, so people are definitely searching for answers. So by distributing Prabhupada's books and explaining to them about Krishna consciousness, and I think we can definitely improve the world situation. Jai Srila Gurudeva ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Chakri Prabhu ki jai. So now we'll have Mathuranath Prabhu. And after Mathuranath Prabhu, Kartikeya Prabhu, can you come up next?
Mam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shimate Tamal Krishna Goswami. So I was thinking what I was going to speak about today, and I was thinking about the first time I actually saw Srila Gurudev. Jivananda Prabhu had, I met him at a show. It's funny, it's a whole story in itself how we were competitors. He worked for one company and I worked for another company, and we both sold the same products. So anyway, I was able to meet him, and he started telling me about Srila Prabhupada and about Krishna consciousness. And a little later on, he told me, he said, you need to take initiation. In order to take initiation, you need to seek out a guru. And at that time, there were like 11 initiating gurus. And he said, any one of these gurus can take you back to Godhead. He said, but if you want to be drugged back to Godhead, you got to take Tamal Krishna Goswami. So I thought, okay, that's probably what I need, is I need to be drugged back. So a little later on, I guess it was 1976 was the first Rath Yatra in New York. Well, Jivananda Prabhu wanted me to go to it. He was asking me to go with him. And so I was making all these excuses of why I couldn't go, money and job and all this. And then I got a letter from my company, and they said, you're not spending enough of our money. They sent me a credit card. It was a travel card where you could just fly wherever you wanted, and just charge it to the card. So I thought, all right, well, I guess this is a sign that, so I thought my first charge on that card was going to New York to the Rath Yatra. And so when we got there, that day we had that night actually, we had a kirtan at Times Square. And so I was walking, I was brand new to Krishna consciousness, and I was walking in the kirtan, and Jivananda had pointed out who Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaja was. And so I was walking, and every time I would look over at Srila Gurudev, he would be staring at me, just like through those glasses, just looking right at me. So I'd turn around, and then I'd walk a little bit, and I'd look over at him, and he's staring at me again, and so that was my first encounter with Srila Gurudev, and I didn't really get to meet him during that Rath Yatra, but that glance from him changed my life. It just shows the power of a pure devotee, just from a glance. We hear that 1 second's association with a pure devotee. So after that, I could feel like my senses were being like challenged, and threatened. So I tried to get a ticket to go home. I was ready to fly home right after that next day, and I couldn't get a ticket. So I went to the Rath Yatra, And then when I got back home, Leela, my wife, she told me, she said, you were never the same after that. Things you tried to do before, like get intoxicated or do this or that, it never was the same after that glance. And I mentioned this to Srila Gurudev one time, and he acknowledged that he remembered that, that glance. And so I just wanted to thank him so much for taking the time to glance at me and giving me his mercy and changing my life like that. So after that, we went back. I went back to Tennessee, Nashville, and during that time, different devotees would come and visit. There was Balavanta Prabhu, Giridhari. He wasn't a Maharaj at that time, but he would come, and then Justadumna Maharaj, and then actually one of the Radha Damodar buses came and stayed at our house for several days until somebody called the police on them and they had to leave. But it was Brahma's bus that came and stayed at our house for a while. So we had a lot of association, people coming through. But then Srila Gurudev came. And when Srila Gurudev came, he stayed with us at our house. And, we all at that time, it was myself, Radhanath Prabhu lived right next door to me. And then there was Jivananda and Rupanuga Prabhu in Knoxville. And so when Srila, we all had jobs, we all had good jobs, we all had a nice house, and so we had everything you were, supposed to have from a material standpoint to make you happy. But Srila Gurudev came and he showed us what real happiness was, and he convinced us that you quit your job, sell your house, and move to Texas, move to here in Texas. So we did that, and I was just thinking back how only a pure devotee could give you that mercy and convince you to be able to do that, And so we did. We all, in 1979, we sold our houses and quit our jobs, and we came here in 79. And so after that, Srila Gurudev, this temple was actually, this room that we're in here right now was actually a basketball court at one time. And Srila Gurudev, with his vision, he made it transformed it into this beautiful temple that it is today. And then also the restaurant, it was his idea to start a restaurant, which we know has so many people have come and taken prasadam and everything. And Srila Gurudev, as Vishwambar Prabhu was saying, this was his headquarters. He considered Dallas as his actual headquarters. And so we redid his room upstairs. And so after remodeling his room, as a devotee named Pasupati Prabhu, Srila Gurudev was there, and we had a new bed for him and everything. And so he was laying in his bed, and he asked, myself and Jivananda were there, and he said, so how does this mattress look? Does it look like it's firm? And I said, yeah, it looks good, Srila Gurudev. You can barely tell that there's an indentation, from your body. And so he said, well, I really think my bed should be over here facing east. But he said, I don't really want to get out of bed. He said, I don't know what to do. And so Jivananda said, well, Srila Gurudev, Manturnath and I, we've been lifting weights, so we'll just pick your bed up and take you over on the other side of the room. So he said, really, you can do that? So we did. We picked his bed up. He got one end, I got the other. We moved him over to the other side of the room, and he said, wow. He said, it was just like flying. He said, move me back over to the other side now. So we did that a couple of times, moving him back and forth, in his room. And he really, really loved his quarters up there, and just loved coming to Dallas. Whenever he would come here, we know what it was like. His place was like a beehive with devotees running every direction, trying to get ready for. And I heard it was like that actually at almost every temple he went to. Tamal Krishna's coming, so anyway. Again, I don't want to go on. There's a lot of different pastimes, but just wanted to thank Srila Gurudev again for taking the time to actually come and rescue us in Nashville, Tennessee, and bring us here to Radhakala Chanti Dham and be able to be here with all the devotees. And so just want to thank him so much for that. Thank you. Jai Srila Gurudev Ki Jai.
Kartikeya Prabhu. Jai Shri Radhe, can you speak after him?
Hare Krishna. Amahom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Tinamine. Srila Gurudev Vyasa Puja Ki Jai. Two characteristics of our beloved Srila Gurudev were both his sense of humor and his humility. In terms of sense of humor, Mathuranath just show us that with moving the bed from here to there, and constantly he had that smile, right? Something like that, and a laugh, and it was so wonderful. And he was very witty and quick with everything. And in terms of the humility, I remember here in this temple, Hridayananda Maharaj gave a class in one of his Vyasa Pujas saying that Gurudev was actually the most humble. Even in the early days when he was very stern and, he used to distribute his sauce very liberally to everyone. But Hridayananda Maharaj said that all that he wanted to do was to please Prabhupada. And so he may be stern and strong and controversial in some things. And so he was criticized in many ways, but he didn't care. He didn't care because all that thing he wanted to do and all his focus was, I want to please Srila Prabhupada. I don't care what anybody else said. And I was just listening to a class Gurudev was giving. He was talking about the humility, in general, the humility of the devotees. And he told a story, maybe some of you heard it in one of his classes, but that many times they have to go through some humiliating things, he said, as when they were distributing books. And how they were pushed and accosted by people, authorities, different things. But he had this situation that we were in India, and they were in India and they were distributing books, and they were went to see an Indian man, and the Indian man said, "Well, looks like you're very thirsty. You should drink something. I have some soda pop." And, the devotees say, "No, thank you very much. We're okay. We don't need anything." And, he insisted, "No, you should have some soda pop. In fact, you're sweating and it's so hot." And the devotees, no, just, we got these books. You were talking about the books. And then the man said to them, "I tell you what, unless you pour these papas out of your heads and cool yourselves, I'm not going to buy the books." So the devotees say, "Okay, we are here to distribute books, so give us the soda pop." And they just put the soda pop over their heads, and then the guy bought the books. And they were saying this was, it seems like he was abusing us, or he was trying to make us serve him in his kind of crazy desire. But what we thought of it is, no, we're not serving this man. We are serving Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada wants us to distribute his books. So if this is what it takes to distribute 6 books, we will put soda pops over our heads. And it's just an amazing example of what devotees have gone, especially in the early days, to live with the instruction of Srila Prabhupada and then the other gurus after he left to keep propagating the Krishna conscious movement. And everything that he was saying here this morning by all the devotees, all the incredible accomplishments, this temple, the restaurant, China, everything, we got to understand that Gurudev had and this is maybe not totally correctly, philosophically, maybe be different, but he only had a 34-year span to do his service. He joined at 18 and he passed at 56, okay? And he was doing all of these temples, China, while doing a myriad of other things, and in a very personal way. I mean, we will write to Gurudev. He's developing China. He is in the university getting 4.0 grades and getting all the awards in SMU and everything. And in the meantime, if any of us would write a letter, he will respond to that letter. He will, or the email. And, I remember when we were in Puerto Rico, we asked him, when we want to see you, Gurudev? And he was writing back and forth in Puerto Rico. And he said, well, when I finish my studies in England and I got my PhD, then I will come to Puerto Rico and see you. So even in the middle of that. So I remember one time in Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, we were in Denver, and Nandini read a list of the accomplishments of Srila Prabhupada, which were inconceivable. And I put something, I'm not going to read it all. It's big letters anyway. I'm not going to read it all because other people want to speak. But I put a list of all Gurudev's accomplishments in his 34 years. So while he is doing everything that we know about and we talk about, his preaching field was, of course, Texas, Dallas, Houston. In Europe, the Middle East, England, Germany, France, Italy, Switzerland, Israel, Hungary, in India, all over India, with the main projects in Mayapur, Vrindavan, Bombay, Govardhan, Varsana, etc. In the Far East, the Philippines, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, South Pacific, Fiji, Australia, New Zealand. He also lectured in New York, St. Louis, Bloomington, Nashville, Knoxville, Chicago, Memphis, Honolulu, Los Angeles, Nukuru, etc., Oklahoma Farm, the US, Singapore, South Korea, Belgium, Zurich, Northern Ireland, Amsterdam, Malaysia, amounting to more than 3,600 recorded classes while he was doing all of these, while having his other duties, including being a GBC, a guru, and developing all the other preaching and managerial situations that he had. So he was beyond in power. Some of the things were mentioned here, so I won't mention. He was 18 years old when he joined the movement and took initiation for Srila Prabhupada. And in just his first 4 years as a devotee, so between 19 and 22, he initiated the successful Sankirtan parties and BTG distribution in Los Angeles and San Francisco. On November of 1969, Srila Prabhupada requested him to go to London, England, to keep organizing the Harinam and preaching. In 1970, again, Srila Prabhupada asked him to do the same thing in Hamburg, Germany, and Paris, France. From there, Prabhupada asked him to go to India until 1972, where he was part of the GBC since its inception. All of this in just his 4 years. After that, he came to America to do the Radha Damodar party. So, we can look at ourselves and see what do we do in our first 4 years of Krishna consciousness in compared to this amazing personality. And there were so many formidable accomplishments. Perhaps, perhaps one of them was when he was in college at SMU. He received 9 of the college's highest awards in 1996, 1997, 1998, all the while keeping his activities and duties as a leader and guru for hundreds of people. So Srila Prabhupada didn't hesitate in calling him. He says, Prabhupada acknowledged that Tamal Krishna Goswami was the foremost grand disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So I pray to Gurudev, if I can only do 1,000 of the 1,000th of the tip of a hair of the service that you did, Srila Gurudev, bless me so I can please you in some way and pay you back for having this richest soul here in the Association of Devotees. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Srila Gurudev Vyasa Puja ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Radha Prabhu.
Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namine. It's been a very long time since we've gathered for Vyasa Puja. And as I was getting ready to come here, I actually hadn't planned on speaking. I was just remembering how when he was here, like the craziness and the enthusiasm and the excitement that we would have in celebrating his Vyasa Puja, while he was here. And usually, or sometimes it wasn't around his actual day because he would be traveling. So I remember one year, it was celebrated in Houston, and we celebrated over Memorial Day weekend. I mean, the whole weekend. And it ended with an initiation ceremony on actual Memorial Day, which also happened to be Bhim Ekadasi, which we celebrated last week. And that was the day that I got initiated 26 years ago. And I remember not feeling ready at all to take shelter, to take initiation, to take such heavy vows, right? Like, this is a promise that I'm making for the rest of my life. But Gurudev said to me, I'm initiating you, so just get ready. Like, he didn't give me a choice about it. And that's how it kind of was in our relationship with us, right? We discussed things, but at the end, if I was kind of indecisive, he made the decision for me. He said, this is what you're gonna do, that's it. So, that was 26 years ago. I was thinking, wow, that was so many years ago. And so many more years that he hasn't been here on earth than when he was actually here on earth. And, there's just so many things that have happened in the last 26 years. I'd love to say that I feel like I'm a lot more progressed in my spirituality and my Krishna consciousness than 26 years ago. I don't know if that's the case. I do know that every Vyasa Puja, I reflect upon that. Every disappearance day, I reflect upon that. Like, how have I progressed? How am I pleasing him? How am I pleasing Srila Prabhupada? And each year, the answer is a little different. Each year, the answer is, I'm going to make more of an effort, right? And that's really what I've come down to, is I'm going to make more of an effort. Like, we just heard all of his accomplishments in his 38 years as a Krishna devotee. It's like mind-boggling that he could do so much in so little time. And I'm thinking, like Kartikeya said, I haven't even done 1,000th of the tip of a hair of what he's done. And if I could even do that much, I feel like I've done a lot. I know that the last couple of years have been extremely difficult with the pandemic, with the world shutting down, with not being able, the temple being closed, not being able to come to the temple. I felt very lucky that because I took shelter of Srila Gurudev 26 years ago, that these last 2 years were not that difficult, that we had this wonderful community that he set up for us, this Dallas, Radha Kalachandji community, all the devotees, we all kind of looked out for each other. We had our own little bubbles within the community that even though we're isolated from each other, we still checked in on each other. And I remember last February when we had that awful, awful snowstorm, when the power went out, and how, we would get these messages that I've got power at my house, who needs to come over, right? And that I just thought was like the quintessential essence of what Gurudev had set up for us, that we could all rely on each other in moments of intense suffering. And that's what we were able to do, is rely on each other when we really needed to. I feel blessed that even though the temple was closed, I still managed to sneak in, and not really sneak in, come in and dress the deities, give class. I remember when we weren't giving class, there was this long stretch, and I started to feel a little antsy, and Ritatvaja Swami had asked me, like, what do I need? What do I need to do to feel like I'm doing something? And then all of a sudden we got the message classes started up again. And then I was like, okay, great. And I remember getting ready for my first class back, and it just felt like being embraced again, doing some service, serving Srila Gurudev in some small way that I can. So as I look forward to the next year as how I can serve, Srila Gurudev in my own way, in the way that he wanted me to, in the way he's instructed me to, you just make a little bit stronger resolve to do so. So with the blessings of all the Vaishnavas here, I hope to be able to fulfill some small measure of, the service that he's given for me. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Jai Shri Radha Prabhu. Jai Shri Radha Prabhu ki jai. I have to ask Arjun Krishna Prabhu to do him in his service to get him up here. So amongst the ladies, any of the ladies would like to say something? Majis? Everybody shaking their head. No. Jai Gurudev.
I don't want this thing on there. It's probably full of germs. Om Gyana Timanandasya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshush Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namane Tistha Dharma Dididena Yasha Sankirtan Shribit Bhavitamyena Bhaktam Scha Prapadima Tashavai Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesa Singhavadi Paschata Deshitarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, we were requested that we all write a Vyasa Puja offering, and by the grace of the two sisters in Pune, they put a book together. So I'm going to read my offering. I normally don't read from, Gurudev told me never to, he took the paper away from me in Fiji. I had a whole thing planned out, 2 pages, real important points that I spent almost half of the night writing. And when I went to talk, I pulled out the paper. He says, no, put the paper away. I says, Gurudev, he says, no, put the paper away. Put the paper away. Okay. Out the paper went, so I had to talk. So from then on, so here's my offering. It was a short offering. Okay. Please accept my humble obeisances in the dust of your lotus feet. All glories to you, Srila Gurudev, on this most auspicious day. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the entire Guru Parampara. Shakshad Daritve Nasamasa Sastere Uktash Tataba Vyateva Sabe Kintu Prabor Yapriya Tasha. I know these by heart, but when I read it, I forget it. Vande Garoshi Charana Vrindam. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of our spiritual master, who is the most bona fide representative of Lord Hari, Krishna. Now, Mohini and her sister requested that we read the first part of the beginning of this book, and this was the first part of it. So the first part, oh, there's more to my offering. Gurudev, you know, when Kartikeya or Chakri Prabhu says there's 2 things that come to mind when I think of Tamal Krishna Goswami. Well, I have about 200 million things that come to mind when I think of Tamal Krishna Goswami. When I first joined, speaking of the Radha Damodar party, I joined this Krishna conscious movement right at the very end in 1976 in Chicago. And I remember the buses being in the back of the temple, and all the brahmacharis were running around. There was dozens and dozens of, and we all slept in the swimming pool. The old temple was a YMCA in Chicago, and they had this big swimming pool. It was about the size of this temple room, and one part of it sloped to go to the deep water. And some devotees had to put some barricades so they had, you picture all of these brahmachari. I was stuffed in there. Of course, I was a grahasta at the time, but so it was the end of the Radha Damodar party, and we had a Rath Yatra in 1976 in Chicago, and Tripurari Maharaj was there with his bus. Gurudev wasn't there at that Rath Yatra. I wish he would have been there, but anyway, it all worked out for the best. And I was, you know, sitting in the crowd listening to all the music, and, you know, I was brand new devotee. And then one brahmachari came up to me and says, Tripurari Maharaj wants to speak with you. He's on that bus. So you know what's coming next, right? So I got on the bus and he started how do you like Krishna consciousness? I says, I'm new, Maharaj. I don't know too much about anything, but I know the prasadam is beyond this world. So that was my main concern at that time, because I just became a vegetarian. And it was very difficult to be a vegetarian back in the, late 70s. So that's what I was, anyway, Maharaj was preaching to me and this and that, and he says, so what are you going to do with your life? I says, well, I have several options. My father thinks I should go to law school. I've been accepted at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, to go to law school. Or I'm thinking about joining the Hare Krishnas. He says, the second choice is the right choice. He says, you should get on my bus and join and ride. And we travel the whole world, the whole United States. And we distribute Prabhupada's books. I says, that sounds great, but I have a wife and a baby sitting right there. And there's no way I could do that, Maharaj. So he says, they'll be okay. They were really hardcore back in the early days. They didn't take no for an answer for anything. But I wasn't given it. I couldn't do that. My son was only not even a year old, And I had to, anyway, so that was the Radha Damodar party. And I just missed the initiation where Gurudev had brought all the buses together, 4 buses. Maybe Chakri, did you get initiated in that big group of brahmachari? Huh? Detroit? Anyway, there was 80 brahmacharis that got initiated in Chicago, 80 at one time. And they had all the Gaudiya deities were there, and they bathed the deities, and they had this big initiation. And Prabhupada was just in ecstasy to see. So one of this, that was like the biggest initiation of that time in the whole world. It was the biggest initiation. I missed it. Every time, it seemed like no matter where I went, I missed Prabhupada. Did you get to meet Prabhupada? I says, no, I never got to meet Prabhupada. Oh, he was just here all over. I says, that's my misfortune. But anyway, things worked out for the best in the long run. I was supposed to get initiated by Srila Prabhupada. I moved here right after Tripurari Maharaj tried to get me on the bus. I asked my wife, I says, let's join this movement. And she says, let's go, And we moved to Dallas here. And then Prabhupada was still on the planet. And we were supposed to get initiated here in Dallas. One of Prabhupada's last initiations. Of course, he was in Vrindavan getting ready to go back to Godhead. Well, he was already back to Godhead, but he was getting ready to leave. And they had initiation here. I didn't get the initiation, so I was very upset. I'll make this quick. So Prabhupada left. I didn't know what to do, so I went back to Chicago. And we had a little apartment right by the temple that the temple owned right down the street. So we were going regularly. And one devotee came, 2 devotees came and asked me, Bhakti Alex, what are you going to do now? I says, well, I don't know what to do. Prabhupada's gone. He says, don't worry. There's 11 successors that Prabhupada left in charge to continue initiating. And one of them is Tamal Krishna Goswami. And I had met Tamal. I never met him personally as an introduction, but I went on a couple morning walks with him in St. Louis, because I would sometimes go to St. Louis just to get out of Chicago, go to St. Louis, see the deities there. And I went on a couple of morning walks with him. So I knew vaguely who Tamal Krishna was. I liked his preaching, the way he preached. He was very clear and cut, easy to understand. And so Markandeya and Purnachandra Prabhu says, you should go to St. Louis. Tamal Krishna Goswami's there, and you should talk with him about your future as far as becoming a devotee. So we drove to St. Louis, and within a few minutes, the first few words out of Gurudev's mouth, I was just captivated. I was just like, this is the person. It's like a true love, you know. It was like it was like a true love. I found my true love. He was. So he says, okay, move back to Dallas. I says, I just moved from Dallas. I'm not going to go back. I don't want to go back. You know, he says, no, I'm in charge of Dallas and St. Louis and Chicago and Houston and, of course, so many other places around the world. But that Midwest region was appointed to him. So I says, okay. And we came back. There was barely anybody here, just a few devotees, a couple pujaris, a couple of cooks. Giridhari Brahmachari at the time was the temple commander, and maybe one or two other devotees, I can't remember, because Satsarup Maharaj was in charge of this temple. And then when they adjusted who's going where to get what zone, Satsarup Maharaj had kind of like the East Coast, so he went to Gitanagari, to Pennsylvania. And he was so attached to these deities, he took the small ones with him, Chota Kalachandji, because he helped Prabhupada install these deities. And that was in the other building they were installed, not here. They were installed in the other building, the sanctuary. But then Prabhupada later changed it, put them here, make this nice. I guess it was a little rundown. The whole place was really quite kind of run down. But shortly, with Gurudev's incredible prowess, within a short time, we had the biggest Sankirtan party in the world here in Dallas. The best book distributors you could find anywhere. He pulled them from everywhere in the world, Australia. They came from everywhere. The best book. And then we built this temple. And then we built the restaurant. No, she came later. I'm talking about Naikatma, mostly Prabhupada disciples. But yeah, then Indra Neelish came, who was one of the very best in the world. That was the icing on the cake. This was Gurudev's, disciple, but the majority they were mostly Prabhupada disciples. And then a couple of bhaktas, myself and Bhakta Bab, who became Kalachandji Das. He was doing better than even the most seasoned Sankirtan devotees in the movement. He was beating Tripurari Maharaj's numbers as a bhakta. This kid was like, where did he come from, And by the way, he made a nice donation. I have to give it to you, Maternath. So it all came together. I mean, this place was buzzing, man. The construction was going on. The deities were getting more opulent. The prasadam was more, it was just turning into at first when I got here, I was kind of like, wow, is this the right thing to do, it was pretty austere. Gopanandini and baby were staying in the Brahmacharini ashram. I was staying in the Brahmachari ashram. It was, with Vaishasika and all, right there in the activities room. He used to sleep right next to Vaishasika. Sura, all those big guns, man. I mean, the little guy, little Bhakta Alex trying to do his best, But the accomplishments are just incredible. Gurudev as an individual, being his personal servant, I scrutinizingly watched him and observed him and everything that he did because it's just basically my nature. Gurudev told me one time, you could never be my secretary because you have a great power of observation and you'll find fault. So you servant, bodyguard, whatever, personal trainer, fine. Secretary, you can't do. And don't get involved in management. He said, don't get involved in management. But to watch and be so close to Srila Gurudev and the things that he's done for this movement, Kartikeya, I mean, you forgot a few other places, the spiritual world, he was preaching in those places too, I think. There's nothing that he couldn't do or hasn't done. He did everything that a guru could want. He was very personal with each and every one of us in a lovingly, fatherly way. He answered every single, back then there was no computers. He personally had typed out letters to every single person and made sure every letter was answered. He was that loving. I mean, there was one time we were upstairs and Gurudev had a little bit of a back problem. No, a shoulder problem. So he was taking massage. And we had a professional masseuse to come in. It was a woman, but Gurudev would have several people around him when she was giving him massage. And she said, she told me and maybe Materna, she says, your spiritual master is not an ordinary person. I says, we know that. I'm glad you know it too now, She says, he has a heart that's bigger than anybody's heart. I could tell by the way his heart beats. It's so strong. So the point I'm making is his heart was so big that he could harbor all his disciples and more and make sure that they got the loving attention that they needed in their spiritual and material life. He covered all bases all the time. Such a loving individual. In giving, he gave everything all the time. And and Prabhupada was so proud of him. The reason I say that is some things he did for Prabhupada, he would make me do for him. And then he would tell me, like one time we were in Hong Kong, and it was near Jalakadasi. And Srila Gurudev said, are you going to follow this near Jalakadasi? I says, yeah, I'll try. I mean, we got to go out on book distribution. I got to come back for lunch to make sure your lunch is ready, your laundry, all of these different things. I says, I'll try to do it. So anyway, Gopal, you remember Gopal? Gopal, Narottam, myself, and pardon me? No, he wasn't the temple president. So we followed this near Jalakadasi. It was difficult, but we did it. And the next day, he told us that, Prabhupada, I did this Ekadasi fast for Prabhupada, and he was very, very pleased. So many things that he did for Prabhupada, I seen him exhibit with his disciples, exchanging in a similar way. Chanting japa. He says, Prabhupada used to sit me right here, and then he would chant japa. He would walk. So sometimes he would do that with me and other devotees. Arjun, come, just sit down. And then he would chant Hare Krishna, back and forth, for maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes. And I wouldn't chant my japa barely. I wanted to hear pure chanting. So I would just kind of like pretend I was chanting because I wanted to hear his chanting, his pure chanting. So many memories with Srila Gurudev. And today's his 76th appearance day. We're so fortunate to be here in the association of each other in a wonderful, wonderful community that we have. I pray and hope that Krishna allows me to stay here. I'm not going anywhere, but just keep me anchored here. Gurudev, keep me anchored here. Sometimes your mind wants to go other places, but this is home. This was his home. This is the place he loved. And I want to thank you all. Keep me in your service. Let me serve you all in one way or the other, whatever I could do. I'm your eternal servant, and I'm Tamal Krishna's eternal servant. And I thank you. Hare Krishna. Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Ki.
Hare Krishna. So it's like Chakri Prabhu was saying this when he spoke, that Gurudev's biggest interest was that we all preach really very nicely. He actually would say to his disciples, many times in all of his lectures you'll hear this point, that the core message that he had for everybody was always be absorbed in Sankirtan. Always be absorbed in Sankirtan. So as disciples, this is something that we have to imbibe, and this is the message that we can give to everybody on behalf of Gurudev. Especially in the younger days, when you all first met him in the younger days, he was very, very strict about these things. And his ideas were also very big. We have all heard how Prabhupada said that one of the diseases he had was he couldn't think small. And Krishna Maharaj was like that too, always thinking big. I remember in the earlier days, many unusual things happened that today people would think, how would it even be possible? I remember one time I'd first come to the US and I didn't come here to preach Krishna consciousness or anything like that. I came for business because we'd lost our business in Fiji, and so I thought, let's make some more money. And what better place in the US to make money? So I came here and made a contract with the United Artists for $4 million. The profit was $2 million. This was in 1992. I mean, at that time, $2 million was a lot of money. I mean, even today, $2 million is a lot of money. Somehow he heard about it, that I was about to sign the contract. So he called me from Mayapur and he said, I want you in Mayapur in 24 hours. And I said, Gurudev, I can come a little later. I've got a contract to sign. I said, I know what contract you're going to sign. So he said, you're such an unfaithful disciple. He said, I want you here in 24 hours. If you want to stay my disciple, be in 24 hours. So I thought, why am I being unfaithful? He said, well, you lost your business, and Krishna wants you to do his business, and you're going back right into doing business again. So I said, well, Gurudev, but there's a profit of $2 million. I mean, I'll take care of my wife, my children will be fine, right? Then I can do full-time service. He said, no, I want you to come to Mayapur right now. So I said, let me make the $2 million. I'll give you the $2 million. He said, no, I don't want the $2 million. I want you in Mayapur in 24 hours. This is, it's very hard to think of a person who thinks like this, you know what I mean? If he's determined to do something, you can give him any amount of money, he's not going to worry about it, At other times, he can tell somebody, please give $5,000. But, his ideas are always very big, and I think that this is something for posterity, because now Srila Prabhupada's disciples are leaving their bodies, and I don't see it's going to be very long before Srila Gurudev's disciples are also going to be starting to leave their bodies. So if there's any message we as the disciples can pass on to everybody else, and how we ran this temple, and how we took care of the temple, and everything else, it was always think big. You can't actually think small things and think that I just have to take care of this much and everything will be okay. No, it won't be okay. You have to really plan on preaching on a larger scale. And it is going to happen. More and more of it has worked out, and more of it will happen. And we have Srila Gurudev to thank for that. Jai, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev Ki. Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja Mahatsava Ki Jai. So now we're going to, yes. Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Take it around. Show it to everybody.
They're on a Damodar bus.
Oh, wow, she did one for that. Let's show it to everybody. And that's so nice. So, yeah, this Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party is such an amazing story. You really have to join us on the Zoom programs to hear these devotees speak about their experience. And their experience is so amazing, you would think it is not even possible that these things happen. It's not possible. But actually, those things happen. And the amazing thing is, it's coming around again. There's talk again of setting up a similar system where the buses will go around and preach again in our own buses. And this time we'll have much better buses. You might remember the last time when the buses were there, they were like 30-year-old, 40-year-old greyhounds. That greyhound had put to rest and said, these buses don't work anymore. The Hare Krishnas bought those buses and turned them into temples, into castles, took them around everywhere. Some of those buses didn't have brakes. Can you imagine? They slowed the bus down by gear, and things like that. It's just amazing stories of what they did with these buses. I mean, they were runaway buses, some of them, I remember one story, they were on the bus, and the bus was so out of control, it was going at 90 miles an hour. And there was nothing you could do to stop it. And it's running at 90 miles per hour. Can you imagine, what you have to do? And these devotees are figuring it out. What are we going to do? What are we going to do to make this bus stop? So they hit it against something on the side, on a big, very big embankment, and actually slowed the bus down by doing that, and just, got the bus to stop. Of course, the bus didn't work after that, but that's how they stopped the bus. Please hear these stories, because this tells us we are not taking risks now for Krishna consciousness. We should be. We must take risks for Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, the deities are going to be bored. They're standing at the altar and they're thinking, wow, it's all very boring. And you know what happens when the deities think everything's bored? They'll create trouble so that you have to deal with the trouble now. And then when you have to deal with the mess, then you'll be coming in front of the deities and praying, please help us, please help us. But they didn't need to help us if we had done something exciting. So please, let's live very exciting lives. And this is the way that His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj wanted us to live our lives. And how His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, also wanted us to live our lives. Thank you so very much. Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja Mahatsava Ki Jai. So now you saw the cake that was made also for the Traveling Sankirtan Party. Now if you would come up and we will do the Pushpanjali to Srila Gurudev. And then we'll have very nice Guru Puja and then serve out a wonderful feast that has been made for this program. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And that's going to go on the other table on the other side. Yes, no. Okay. So if you can come in closer, please. Ladies on that side, the men on this side. Please all make sure that you get your flower petals. And remember that we'll be offering these flower petals 9 times, okay? So don't throw all your flower petals at once. Please come in closer so you can get the flower petals to actually come on Guru Maharaj. All right. Okay. No, I've got mine. Yeah. No, please take it. Yeah. Wait, there are more flower petals. There are more flower petals there on the other side. Yeah. Okay, so please read after me. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahya Dadati Swapadantika Vandeham Sri Guroho Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha-shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shivarshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdhaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhuryo Jwala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida, Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti, Vigrahaya Namostate, Namaste Gauravani, Shri Murte Dinatarine, Rupanuga, Viruddhapa Siddhanta, Dhvantaharine, Namo Gaur Kishoraya, Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye, Vipralambara Sambhode, Padambhujayate Namaha, Namo Bhakti Vinodaya, Satchidananda Namine, Gaura Shakti Swarupaya, Rupanuga Varayate, Gauravirbhava Bhumestvam, Nirdeshta Sajjana Priyaha, Vaishnava Sarvabhaumaha, Shri Jagannathayate Namaha, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhya, Vaishnavebhya Namo Namaha, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya, Namine Gauratushe Namaha, Panchatattvatukam Krishna, Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam, Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam, Namami Bhakta Shaktikam, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandho Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute, Divyat Brindaranya, Kalpadrumadaha, Srimad Ratnagara, Singhasanastho, Srimad Radha, Srila Govinda Devo, Preshtali Bihi, Sevyamana Smarami, Shriman Rasa Rasarambi, Bamshi Bata Tatastitaha, Karshan Venusmaner Gopir, Gopinath Shriyestunaha, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanusute Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now we're going to do the pranam mantra for Srila Gurudev. And after each pranam mantra, we'll be offering the flower petals 3 times. That way, we'll do the pranam mantra 3 times, and the flower petals 3 times 3, 9 times. Okay? So please repeat after me. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale, Srimate Tamal Krishna, Goswami Niti Namine, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali. Jai Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale, Srimate Tamal Krishna, Goswami Niti Namine, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali. Jai His Divine Grace, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale, Srimate Tamal Krishna, Goswami Niti Namine, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali, Esha Pushpanjali. Jai Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudeva Ki, Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja Mahatsava Ki, Srila Gurudev's Avirbhav Mahatithi Ki. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Astotar Satar Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Gurudeva Ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So after the Guru Puja, which will be next, we'll have the feast served out downstairs in the activity room. And we sincerely apologize to everyone. There is no air conditioner down there. So if you want to eat down there, you can. We're going to set up tables. But if you want to go out in the park, you can also go out in the park and find some shade out there. So anyway, after the Guru Puja, we'll have the feast downstairs. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva. Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev. Samsara Dava Nanarira Loka Pranayaka Yuna Guna Gunatam.
This isn't the melody I want. It's not the right melody.
Samsara Dava Nanarira Loka Pranayaka Yuna Guna Gunatam. Praptasya Yuna Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrinda. Praptasya Yuna Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravrinda. Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Varita Mahajan Manasura Sena. Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Varita Mahajan Manasura Sena. Romanchakam Pashrutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam. Romanchakam Pashrutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam. Shri Vigrahara Dhananichana Singaratam Mandira Majanado. Shri Vigrahara Dhananichana Singaratam Mandira Majanado. Tasya Bhaktam Sanayunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam. Yuktasya Bhaktam Sanayunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charana Vrindam. Chaturveda Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadvana Triptam Abhibhakta Sangam. Chaturveda Shri Bhagavat Prasado Swadvanatritam Maribhakta Sangam. Triptaiva triptim bhajato sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Triptaiva triptim bhajato sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Shri Radhika Madhavayora Pada Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna. Shri Radhika Madhavayora Pada Madhurya Lila Gunarupa Namna. Pratiksanasvadanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Pratiksanasvadanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Nakunja you know Ratikeli Sijay Yayali Beduk Tirapexania. Nakunja you know Ratikeli Sijay Yayali Beduk Tirapexania. Tatrati Dakshad Ati Vallabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Tatrati Dakshad Ati Vallabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Aksadari Vena Sumasta Shastri Yuktastata Bhavyataiva Sadbi. Aksadari Vena Sumasta Shastri Yuktastata Bhavyataiva Sadbi. Kentu Prabhuya Priya Vatasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Kentu Prabhuya Priya Vatasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada nagati gutopi. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada naguti gutopi Ayam stuvam tasya yasya shri sajam Mande guru shri charanara vrindam Dayam stuvam tasya yasya shri sajam Mande guru shri charanara vrindam Vande 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 Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Jai Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jai Jaya Guru Dev. Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jai Jaya Guru Dev. Jaya Jaya Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jai Guru Dev. Slow down. Namah Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya, Bhutale, Srimate, Tamal Krishna. Goswami Niti Namine Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Niti Namine Tamal Krishna Goswami Niti Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Niti Namine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jai Jaya Guru Dev, Jai Guru Dev. Jai Guru Dev, Jai Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jai Jaya Guru Dev. Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Guru Dev, Jai Jai Guru Dev. Jaya Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Jaya Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. Jaya Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Radhe. Jaya Radha Kalachandji Radha Kalachandji Radhe. Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai. Go Premanandi. Down Vishnupad Paramamsa Parivajagajaya Sasada Shishimad, His Divine Grace. Srila Tamal, Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudeva ki jai. Srila Gurudev ki jai. Om Vishnupad Paramam Saparivajagachaya Sasada Shishmad. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi.
Kashi Purvakshar Hiranya Kashi Purvakshar Shila Tonka Nakalaye Tone Srima Paratone Srimo Yato Yanita Tone Srima Bahirne Srimo Idaye Srimo Nara Sringamadim Sharanam Prapode Tavakara Kamalavari Nakamaduta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubrinam Keshavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshavadrita Narari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Nishridev Jai Nishridev Jaya Nashringadev Jaya Nashringadev Jaya Nashrimhadev Jaya Nashrimhadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Srila Gurudeva Jaya Srila Gurudeva Jaya Srila Gurudev Jaya Srila Gurudev Dev Jaya Srila Gurudev Jaya Srila Guru Haribo 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 Nitagora Haribo Nitagora Haribo Srila Bhagavan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Gaura Pramanande.
माइक वहां से भी बंद करना होता है क्या?
Puja